So, Ms. Sharevko, let me begin by asking, how do you describe the situation today in Gaza? And are there words that can do justice to what you've seen and documented?
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening. I struggle to find the right words because I think we've exhausted every adjective that exists in the English language to describe this catastrophe. Every day it's getting worse. Every hour it's getting worse. We are now looking at 2 months, the longest time all the crossings for the entry of anything have been completely closed. People are desperate for the smallest morsel of food. As you said, hospitals are running out of supplies and operating under fire. The mass casualties are the norm. And of course, this is happening against the background of all supplies running out.
Now, you've worked in Gaza before and returned during the war. Are there massive changes that you have witnessed between your previous missions in Gaza and your most recent experiences?
Absolutely. When I first returned, which was in January of last year, it was the first time I entered Gaza City. And every time I enter Gaza City, I'm in Gaza City right now. And I pass by the areas that I knew very well because I was here for several years. The house I lived in, none of these areas are recognizable. The spirit of Gaza, I don't recognize it. The people have remained so strong and resilient, but visually, even my colleagues who had not seen it for the entire year and a half that the war has been going on. Some of them had the chance to go up to the north and see their former houses. And they said, no picture, no video, no story could ever compare to what they felt and what they saw in person and with their own eyes when they actually got to see it.
Now, aid organizations, including OCHA, who you work for, and UNRWA as well, now blocked from entering Gaza. What are the implications of this total shutdown for both humanitarian workers, and what is the impact on the population who relies on you?
Of course, we are trying to do what we can here on the ground. As you mentioned, UNRWA international staff have left. However, UNRWA's national staff remain here and they're carrying out their work, and they remain the biggest provider of healthcare, for example, and they're providing about 18,000 consultations a day. Of course, the conditions have become completely unbearable with the insecurity and the hostilities continuing and the crossings being closed. So we are rapidly running out of the last of the supplies, and as UNRWA announced and the World Food Programme announced, they have provided the last of their food stock to the community kitchens, to the hot meals kitchens. So once those run out, we are facing a very, very clear and dangerous risk of hunger.
Now, you've written very powerfully about the resilience of women in Gaza. Amid such trauma, what moments have stayed with you the most during your encounters and with displaced families and those frontline volunteers?
I was just in a hospital earlier today, and this hospital specializes in pediatrics, and they have one of the few neonatal intensive care units in northern Gaza. And the doctor in this hospital told me that when it was struck by some airstrikes earlier in the year. And they weren't able to continue operating until they repaired it again. He showed up for work, and this man is about, I would say, in his late 70s. He's been a doctor his entire life. And he showed up in front of the hospital and he sat in front of the hospital. And he said, I will continue accepting patients here on the street, and I will continue serving my people to try to save as many as I can, because this is my job and this is what I was called to do. And of course, there are so many stories like these.
And as of now, almost 90% of Gaza is either damaged or under some kind of active evacuation order. What does that mean for the feasibility of any kind of sustained aid delivery?
Well, first there has to be aid to deliver, as I mentioned, because for 2 months the crossings have been closed and there is almost no aid to be delivered. But the crossings must be reopened, of course, for us to be able to deliver this aid. But the problem is with these displacement orders and the so-called buffer zone around the perimeter of Gaza, and the Netzarim corridor that is called the Netzarim corridor that splits northern and southern Gaza. This means that about 70% of the territory is virtually inaccessible or very, very difficult to access. So, of course, we're operating under extreme insecurity and we will continue to do so. But Gaza, the people of Gaza, are continuously being squeezed into an ever-shrinking space. And of course, before we've had the situation where about 11% of the territory was being populated by the entire population of Gaza. And we are on that track now as more and more people are being forced to displace again. At this point, another 420,000 people have been forced to be newly displaced.
And finally, Ms. Shrevko, what would you say to the international community today, to those people, the policymakers, and also citizens as well, who still have the power to act, but of course the international community remaining on the sidelines mostly? What would you like to say to those policymakers particularly?
What I would like to say is that obviously we have been appealing for days and months and over about 18 months now for this bloodshed to stop, for the international law to be respected. And I hope that the world can look itself in the eye years from now and tell itself why it stayed silent. And we have appealed and we continue to appeal to the international community to act, because just listening obviously isn't bringing any results. So the time to listen is over, the time to act is now.